Over the weekend, I played a lot of Darktide. In fact, I streamed it for over 11 hours over 2 days, and honestly, I still want to go back in and play more. It's just that fun. By the way, if you want to catch those streams, since I'll likely be doing more, twitch.tv/COLONELDAMNEDERS, would love to see you there, play some together, and maybe give away a few more keys. Anyway, in all those hours, I've killed and been killed by countless elites, and it got me thinking about how exactly you beat each one, since they can be a massive pain in the ass if you don't know how to deal with them right. And that's what this video is. I mean, if you didn't get that from the title, then I don't know what to tell you. I'm going to go over the weak spots, the best strats to take down each one, and generally the best way to take them on to get rid of them as fast as possible and keep your team as healthy as you can. Okay, let's get started with the melee elites. First up, we have the Mauler. Maulers are pretty easy since they're really slow with all their armor. This does mean they can take a while to go down since they are so tough, but you can do it whilst avoiding any damage pretty easily. All their attacks are pretty telegraphed with big windups, so just look for those and dodge backwards for side attacks and sideways for overheads. Hit them with the heaviest attacks you can, preferably to the head, and this should go down eventually. Also, if you hit them with a heavy enough attack to the head, they'll probably get staggered, and then you can chain stagger them until you take them out. Next up, we have Ragers, and these come either armoured or unarmoured, but honestly, either of them are one of the hardest to take out if you ask me. They seem to attack relentlessly, and not much seems to stagger them aside from an Ogren charge. I think that if they get hit in the back with a heavy attack, it throws them off, so if you can get an ally to help you out or help out an ally, then do this. Otherwise, block their very lengthy attack pattern before countering with the heaviest hit you can to the head. If you manage to stagger them once, use more and more heavy attacks to throw them off balance and chain stagger them to use this to your advantage and avoid their massive amounts of damage. Of course, they also have no ranged, so if that's an option, just shoot them, but they move fast and don't slow down for most weapons, so be prepared to switch weapons once they get close. Next up, we have the Bulwark. Now these are tanky more than damaging, and the main problem is their shields. They can block fire from most weapons and protect themselves as well as any enemies behind them, which can be a massive pain in the ass during a horde. Since they carry the shield with their left hand, dodge sideways onto their non-shield holding hand and hit them with heavy attacks, preferably to the head if you can. This will stagger them and cause them to fall sideways, allowing you to continue hitting them and causes all enemies behind them to lose their shield. They do attack from the side that you'll be dodging towards, so just look for them winding up and either dodge backwards to avoid, block it, or counter-attack to stagger them and interrupt it. Next up, we have Crushers. Now these are super tough and can take out an entire team if you let them. Trust me, I know. Oh, fuck you. Man, there's a big boy on me.
Yeah, it's fine.
Is it? I'm dead. Man, I'm dead.
A few moments later.
How much health has he got?
Oh my god, how?
What the fuck? What the fuck? This guy literally killed our entire team. They're quite similar to Maulers, so are armored but attack quite slowly, giving you plenty of time to get your dodge timing down. Their main damaging attack is the overhead hammer, which you can dodge by looking for the secondary lift. They first lift up the hammer, and then just before it's about to come down, they do another very small lift, so dodge sideways when you see this to avoid damage. Reply with heavy attacks to the head, and if you're lucky, you'll stagger them. Same as always, if they stagger once, use more heavies to the head to stagger them again. Now the Pox Burster. These, honestly, you have no choice but to just shoot them. You can kill them in melee, but whenever they die, they explode, so you want to be as far away from them as possible when they do. You can always hear them coming as they have one of the most obvious sound cues in the game, and just as they're about to dive, they have a pretty noticeable alarm clock type sound, so once you hear that, spam dodge or sprint to make some distance to reduce or avoid the damage entirely.
Oh, don't get blown off the edge.
Oh!
The witch is dead!
Also, try to spread your team out a bit when you hear these coming. Of course, don't get totally separated, but if you can't take them down with ranged and they land right on top of you, the last thing you want is a full team wipe, so spread out to keep at least 3 of you relatively safe. Next, we have the Pox Hounds. Now, it took me to the end of my second stream to work this out, but you can actually push the hound to stop them from pouncing. The timing is pretty tight, but it can be clutch if you get it right. You have to shove them when they're priming themselves for the pounce. Once they're in the air, it's pretty much too late, and you have to try to dodge to the side to avoid them and try again. If you manage to stagger them before they pounce, you'll have a brief window to hit them hard, again, preferably in the head, to chain stagger them and take them down. Whatever you do, when you hear the sound, stay with your team, as if one of you gets pinned, you want the others to free you as quickly as possible. And our final melee elite is the Mutants. From what I can tell, these can't be stopped once they set off on a charge. You can sometimes dodge them if you time it just right, but most of the time they'll manage to grab their target before doing a bit of ground and pound. Once they do grab their target, they stand still for a few seconds for said ground and pound. So that's your team's window to focus them down as fast as possible. They have no armor, so just hit them with everything you have to burst them down as quickly as possible, preferably to the face, and save your teammate from being thrown across the map. If they haven't started charging, then an Ogren charge or a very heavy attack to the head can sometimes stagger them and give you time to focus them down before they can get on the move. Now we come to the ranged, and honestly the strategy with most ranged elites is pretty much the same. You can either have someone shoot back at them when they aren't being shot at, or you can close the distance and lock them in melee. The second option tends to be the best way to go, since it'll stop them from firing even if they don't instantly die, plus since they're ranged specialists, they're pretty terrible in melee and stagger super duper easy. To do this, you'll need to listen for the audio cues to tell when they're about to fire. Dip into cover, avoid being shot, and then charge towards them in the gap between shots. So first up, we've got the shotgunner. For the shotgunner, he does a very noticeable rack sound before he fires. So hide, wait for him to shoot, and then move up once he's fired. The gunners, these guys have a sort of wind-up noise for their rapid-fire guns that's kind of like a whirring, so head for cover when you hear this, and then wait for the fairly long gap in their shooting. If there's no cover, then try to run laterally, otherwise they can deal devastating damage and slow you down a ton upon hit, resulting in a very quick down. For the snipers, these are super devastating if they land shots, but they also have some of the most obvious cues. They have a very large red line between them and their targets, they make a very loud noise when they're about to shoot, as well as their scope flashing just before they make the shot. When you see the flash and hear the noise, dodge laterally to them and they'll always miss. Since they're so far away, most of the time closing the distance can be a pain, so if anyone on your team can shoot them, do it to save you a lot of time. These should always be a priority target for your sharpshooter, so make sure you ping them with middle click to make the shot as easy as possible. As for bombers, these guys flash red when they're about to throw a grenade, and stand still whilst making a rapid beeping noise. This makes them an easy target for ranged or charging towards. Just be aware that they'll drop the grenade when they die, so dodge away once they're taken out to avoid extra damage. Also, the grenades are incendiary, so if they bomb an area, avoid it for a few seconds to keep out the extra damage. Next up we have the trappers. These make a very noticeable rattling whir-up noise, so once you hear this, dodge laterally towards the end of it to dodge the net. Now this one is actually a projectile, so you can see it come towards you if you're quick enough. They normally run away after shooting, so take them down quick and don't let them get away. These are one of the most annoying, as they take you out the fight instantly and can end your mission if you aren't careful. Even if you're full health, you can still get netted and be taken down instantly. Next we have flamers, and these actually have two variations. We have green and red, but they're pretty much both the same. They both have a sort of clicking noise like a gas hob before they fire. So once you hear this, get into cover or run laterally to where they are, since running straight at them will result in a lot of damage. They also leave the area they fired upon on fire for a little bit, so avoid this until it clears up. They also tend to scream insanely, so if you can hear that, then they're probably nearby. And our final ranged elites are the Reapers. These make a, for lack of a better word, Transformers type noise just before shooting. So keep your ear out for that and then keep moving towards them. Once they're in melee, just spam heavies to the head and they'll stagger pretty easy and go down fast. And finally, we have the bosses. Currently, we have 4 in the game, but I'm sure more and more will come out as the game progresses, as well as more of all kinds of elites. So this video will be updated in future. First up, we have the Plague Ogren. These are super tanky and deal a massive amount of damage if they catch you in melee. Fortunately, they don't have range attacks, so if you keep your distance and dodge their attacks, you should be just fine. They have a charge, which has a pretty obvious wind-up, so simply step to the back and side of them to avoid being hit. All their attacks are super slow and have really obvious wind-ups, so dodge around them to the backs and sides, and they won't really be able to do much to you. Aim to hit them in the head and on the vents on their backs with the strongest attacks you can to deal the most damage. Next we have the Beasts of Nurgle. These are a little quicker than the Ogrens, so you have to keep moving a little bit more, and they also have a ranged vomit attack that coats the area with damage over time. The same damage also follows them in a trail, so avoid standing in this as much as you can, as it can really add up even if it isn't instant damage. They also have an attack where they pull you into their mouths and hold you for a few seconds before spitting you across the map. Once this grabs you, there's not really anything you can do to dodge it, but it doesn't actually do a lot of damage, so it's not really that bad. If anything, gives you a little break. Have a nice drink of water, and then get ready to get back into the fight. Just pray it doesn't spit you somewhere too dangerous. Trying to stay on the sides of these guys to avoid their main attacks, and standing in their trail. The large yellow boil on their back is their main weak point, so target it with as many powerful attacks as you can to deal the most damage. Just be aware that when you're on the sides, they tend to turn quite quickly, so once it starts, be sure to dodge around to the back, take a little bit of damage, and continue hitting that boil. Next up we have the Demon Host, which is one of the more recently added bosses, and this one is a bit tricky if you don't know exactly how to deal with it. Basically, you need an Ogren with a shield to beat it. They have to be the one to engage first, and basically, just find a corner, pull up their shield, and wait for the team to kill it. It's not as tanky as the other bosses, but it'll still take a minute or two to take out. If you don't have an Ogren, I just avoid it, as it will take you down one by one, and when you go down, consume your HP, and instantly full kill you, meaning you have to be rescued. It will go away after taking 2 people, but it's still not ideal. You can avoid it pretty easily by listening for the whispers and cries. It's kind of similar to a witch from Left 4 Dead. Just don't get close, and definitely don't hit with anything, and you should be able to get past just fine. And finally we have what I'm going to call the objective boss, since I don't know what else to call him. The main tip for these guys is to focus them as much as possible. Their main threat is not really themselves, it's the waves they summon into fight for them. Take them out as quick as you can means less waves, so less distractions, and less extra damage you have to deal and take. The shield takes some getting through, and once it breaks it pushes you all back, so try and place your back to a wall when it's about to blow to limit the movement. Its melee attacks are strong but have pretty obvious wind-ups, with the overhead slam being the most powerful but also one of the easiest to avoid. It's pretty similar to the Crushers, where he lifts up the hammer and then lifts it a little bit more before bringing it down. He also has a kick which is a bit less obvious but can be dodged with the right timing. Keep him in melee as much as you can, as his range is a lot harder to dodge and it seems to hit a lot harder too. But the main thing, again, just focus on him. I've lost several missions because my team got distracted by other enemies, split up, and then we got overwhelmed. If there's a trapper taking you out or a flamer coning you all in fire, then take it out, but immediately get back to the boss as soon as possible, otherwise they just won't stop coming. Once he's dealt with, you can easily mop up any remaining enemies and get the easy dub. And I believe that is every elite and how to beat them. If I missed any, then leave them down in the comments below, and I'd be more than happy to make a follow-up video of this, especially once the game gets full release and updated, as I'm sure more and more release and more bosses will release over the game's lifespan. Hope you enjoyed this video and or found it useful. If you did, then be sure to leave it a like, and of course subscribe to the channel. I've got a bunch more Darktide content planned, so you don't want to miss it. If you're feeling especially big penis and want to support the channel directly, then consider becoming a member on YouTube or a patron on the Patreon, or of course subbing on Twitch, where I'll hopefully be doing a few more Darktide streams. Supporting in any way gets you early insights into future content, increased voting power, discounts on merch, as well as shoutouts at the end of videos, just like Henry took of his support at the Officer's tier. Thank you to all supporters. One last thank you for watching, and for now, I've been COLONELDAMNEDERS, and I will see you next turn.